What's up? We're back, and at the recording of this, Thanksgiving is coming up next week. Curious, do you have any big plans for the holiday? Are you big on Thanksgiving at all?
Yeah, so I love having time off. So I always look forward to Thanksgiving mainly for that. I'm a huge football fan, so I love watching football. Last few years, I've been able to be the cook or be the chef. I like to say I don't know how much of a chef I am, but I do enjoy cooking. So I do the turkey, and there's a couple other things that I do, and then my in-laws bring in a lot of food, of course. So it's a great time. To be honest, I'm not a huge turkey guy. It's like, hey, it's a lot of protein. That's awesome. I love that. So I eat as much of it as I can. But if it was purely up to me, I would probably have like a big steak or
I was gonna say
some kind
that.
of red meat. But it's fun. The traditions are a lot of fun, and it's a great time. It's a nice, chill, relaxed family time. So I enjoy that aspect of it for sure. What about you?
Nice. Yeah, I'm curious too, do you guys do any like holiday traditions as a family, or is it more just like football and just chilling?
Yeah, for Thanksgiving, it's really I'm really the only one that watches the football, so everyone else is hanging out and talking to socializing, and I have the game on while I'm cooking the turkey. But other than that, no tradition. We typically kind of carried on the tradition when I was growing up. We always had the big meal like around like 3 o'clock or so in the day. So we kind of just have snacky stuff throughout the day, and then have that really big meal. I've tried to make it more of a tradition where I do something afterwards or before. There's been a couple years where we've run like a turkey trot.
Mm.
Not a big runner myself, but so I don't know if we'll do that this year. But no huge tradition. I guess the main tradition is I cook and then I watch football, and then we have a big meal in the middle of the day.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. Pretty chill. I've never been super big on the holidays in general, especially Thanksgiving, but I think that's more just due to my upbringing and just not like having that deep family connection. So for me, it's just like, it's kind of whatever. Usually, I'd say holidays are honestly pretty tough for me. Like, I go through, I feel like it is for a lot of people, it brings up a lot of emotions and it can be a tough time. It can be a great time as well. But for me, it has tended to be a tough time mentally. But I will say this year, I'm feeling different. I'm feeling better. I
Good, good.
think one as of as we're recording this, we just launched our scholarship, and so I have been on such a high talking to so many people and getting new people on board, and just being able to be a big part of their change going into the year. So like I'm riding that high, and I'm super excited. And I'll just be kind of like keeping my head down, taking all these calls, and getting people onboarded for the Thanksgiving. So I'm kind of locked into that, and then also I think I'm feeling a lot more settled in Florida. Like I finally have some friends and some connections. So like I feel more supported and secure in that sense, even if I'm not necessarily doing anything special on Thanksgiving. So I think that that's made a really big difference. So I'm feeling good.
Good. Yeah. So this is going to be the year of Thanksgiving for you. It's going to be an awesome Thanksgiving. All right.
We'll see if I even have a Thanksgiving meal or whatnot. But hey, I might do steak too or something like that.
Yeah. Start your own tradition, right?
Right. Do you have any? I know you said you're not a big turkey fan and prefer steak. Do you have any other like go-to foods, or even just in general outside of Thanksgiving, that you typically go to if you're eating out or just out of your normal routine?
Yeah. So I don't eat out a whole lot, but when I do, I tend to kind of go off track, and I just lean on foods that I really love in general. So that would, for me, it's probably the my number one choice would be just a really good burger and fries.
Oh, okay.
Like that would be my go-to if I'm anywhere. I really kind of I feel like it's hard to mess up a good burger, and but I love a good burger anywhere I go. That's always kind of like my go-to. What about you?
Yeah, I'm a big sushi gal, as I'm sure everyone knows. That's what I get every week. Like I don't really have a desire for anything like super crazy or unhealthy. Like I always just go for the sushi. I'm curious with the burgers, do you have like a go-to spot? I know sometimes there can be some controversy, like people are like In and Out versus Five Guys, or I don't know. There's there's some debate out there.
There is so my probably favorite like fast food would be In and Out and Whataburger. Growing up in
Okay.
Texas, we had Whataburger. Unfortunately, I don't have either of them here.
Tragic.
So I don't really have like a go-to place in general. Usually it's a nicer restaurant that just makes a really good burger I'll go to. But
Fair.
fast food chains, those are my two favorite burgers that I go to. Of course, yeah, if you're from Texas, you gotta love the Whataburger. And In and Out's always a classic. So either one of those is would be fantastic for me.
Fair, fair. Well, speaking of the holidays and everything, it's coming up on that time, meaning New Year's resolutions.
Yeah, it's
And
almost there. It's almost here.
I've never been a big fan of New Year's resolutions personally. I think some people may be able to set a goal on January 1st and keep at it, and that's great if you're one of those people. However, for the majority of people, that's not going to be the case. And I see that all the time. People wait until New Year's to make the resolutions because it's fun. It's what everyone does on January 1st. And by the time February rolls around, they've completely forgotten about it and reverted back to their usual ways. I think if you feel the need to wait until January 1st to make a fresh start, or if you're putting off your goals until then, it's usually a sign that something's off and you're out of alignment there. When we set everything on one date, we also build up this huge pressure around it, thinking that suddenly on January 1st, everything's going to change. But in the grand scheme of things, it's another day. Nothing magically changes once the clock strikes midnight. You aren't going to magically change. Your habits won't, your mindset won't. I think real change doesn't come from flipping a switch overnight. It comes from building habits gradually and consistently. And so that's why today we wanted to share some tips on how to approach the new year and new goals if you have them to make sure that it actually sticks long term. And now, all that being said, I do like the new year as a way to reflect on past goals and adjust accordingly. I do this every month and week to some extent, but I find it can always be a good checkpoint just at that new year's mark to sit back, take a real inventory of things and where you're at, what you want to achieve. And I think that's step one is goal setting. And I think a lot of people get this part wrong. So let's first touch on that, how to create proper detailed action plan, and then we can go from there.
Yeah, I was just thinking, I wonder if I'm sure there's some research out there, like the percentage of people that attempt to make a goal, and more recently, I feel like people come up with like a word of the year, which I think can be powerful too. But it's still along the same lines. No matter what you're doing, whether you're setting a certain goal or you're coming up with a word that you kind of want that will be like your powerful word, you still have to kind of set a plan for it, right? So that's something we're going to talk about, and we've all set goals before, whether it's in the beginning of the year or, any time of the year, we've all set some kind of goals. And I feel like, especially during this time of year, we experience that like initial burst of motivation, right? Like, marketing is a powerful tool. I don't know where it came up with January 1st, was like, hey, now is when we have to start doing these things and
Right?
set the goals. But you see it all over the place, and it's easy to do, but we just get so excited about January 1st is like a new start, refresh or whatever. So, but then over time it kind of fades away. And it's something we probably all experienced, somewhere down the road. So what I've come to realize is the real reason that I think that people fall short isn't lack of desire. People will talk about all the time, I really want this. It's a lack of a solid plan. So motivation is temporary, it's fleeting. And so without like a really clear strategy, I feel like we end up relying more so like on our emotions, or maybe even our impulses, right? And that usually ends up, putting us where we don't want to be, or, that doesn't really lead to our best interest.
100%. I always say motivation is a temporary feeling. It's great when it's there. We can ride that wave, but it's not something that we can rely on, especially when it comes to our big, powerful goals that we want to achieve. So, my process for goal setting comes down to one, figuring out what you want to achieve. There's this great perfect day exercise. It's like a long video, but basically the basis of it is you write out your perfect day, what that looks like in your dream outcome, like to every little detail, like when you're waking up, what you're looking at, how you're feeling, who you're waking up next to, like every little detail. And I love that. Like, this is not something that everyone has to do. It just kind of relates to the goal setting. But I love this because it shows how aligned you are with that perfect life that you're aiming towards and what areas you need to improve on. But ultimately, we need to know what you want to achieve. It's really hard to make some progress and be consistent if you have no idea what you're actually working towards. So, step one is sitting down and really thinking about your goals and putting the emphasis on the why behind it. I recommend journaling this out as usual, but ask yourself, like, what do you want? why do you want it? What is that actually going to look like for you? And what is that going to feel like? We talked about this before, but like sitting in those feelings, sitting in those emotions, picturing yourself having that outcome, what does that feel like? And ultimately, what does this mean to you on a deep level? How is this going to impact your life? How are you going to feel at work? How are you going to interact with your family? Whatever else you have going on. What do you need to do to reach that goal? And also, why don't you have it already? Sit down, dive deep, reflect on this. And it's not just because it's New Year's. You need that purpose. You need to know the real reason why you are pursuing this goal. Your why is what will drive you and keep you moving forward, even when things get tough and even when the motivation fades. Like I said, it's great when it's there, but it is going to fade. It's a temporary feeling. So we need that deeper purpose, that deeper why that's going to drive us when it fades.
Yeah, I've never heard of that idea of the perfect day. And I think it's, obviously we're never searching for perfection. We're always looking for progress. But I think it's interesting. I don't know, to be honest with you, if you ask me right now, like what my perfect day would look like, there's probably things that pop in my mind that would be part of it. But to like detail it out, like every single, I don't know if I could do that. So I think that'd be a really cool thing to do with yourself, with somebody, or just even by yourself, just thinking in your mind what that would look like. And then as you're going through, figuring out like what your goals are and what you want to do, like how aligned is it with that perfect day? So I like
Yeah.
that. I've never heard that before. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it like is not stuff that you think about. And I have it like I journaled it out, I pinned it on my whiteboard. And it literally took me hours to do it. I have like a stack of like 10 pages because like you're getting into every detail and you're like it takes a long time to really think about like what you're doing in every minute of every day and what that looks like. But it really is a powerful exercise. And obviously it's going to change over time, but I think it's really good to get that perspective and see, what that dream outcome is for you and how aligned again you are with that.
All right. Yeah. So let's go ahead and start with the basics of any kind of goal setting, whether it's January 1st or middle of April. You have to set realistic goals. And I know I love the idea of aiming high. I love the idea of being super ambitious. I think there's definitely a place for that. But your goals have to fit in with the lifestyle that you're currently living now. And it's easy to get excited. Like we talked about that motivation to get all pumped up about something, and set a goal that sounds awesome in the moment, but then it doesn't really fit with your current routine. And if that happens, you end up setting yourself up for failure. The opposite of what we're trying to do, which is to succeed. So one thing, what I think is great is just kind of take a step back, make sure that those goals you come up with are grounded in reality, right? Is this going to be something realistic that I'm going to be able to achieve? Something that you can work towards today, not just something that you wish you had like down the road.
Yeah, got to make the goals manageable. Most people, when making resolutions or just goals in general, will go 0 to 100, which again, we love that ambition. We love thinking about that end goal. But if your goal is to work out and you jump into 7 days a week, or if your goal is to lose weight and you immediately cut calories to a significant degree, that's not sustainable. You're going to get burnt out going 7 days a week to the gym. If you're not used to watching what you eat, you're going to get burnt out in that large restriction and start feeling like shit. Doing too much too fast will burn you out and ultimately lead you to reverting back to the old ways, which is everything that we're trying to stop. We're trying to build this so it's sustainable, so we have permanent lifestyle change. And so the point is, you got to make your goals manageable, something that you will be able to sustain long term. Start with those baby steps and slowly build on them over time.
Yeah, and so I think it's. I mean, like you said, we love being ambitious, and I think you should be ambitious. And we're not saying that don't have these high goals to achieve, but you start with that. But then I think you have to take a step back and break that down. So that's kind of like our next step is kind of break down your ultimate goal, your ultimate plan. And I think this is where a lot of people get stuck. So we think that we have to have everything figured out from the beginning. Like you said, if we haven't worked out before or we want to start working out, we feel like we have to go every single day. And the truth is we don't. Like we really need to keep it simple, especially in the beginning. We tend to overcomplicate everything. So start with like kind of like a real basic outline of what you want to achieve, and then build that consistency that we've talked about being consistent. I'll be talking about that forever probably,
Yep.
but build that consistency. And then as you get consistent, then we can start layering in more details or more things that are going to get us closer to that goal. So start with a very easy, achievable goal, and then once it becomes part of your routine, then we can add on to it and improve on that goal. And then the next thing I want to talk about is being real specific with your goal. And I really think this is a big one. I've been very guilty in the past of coming up with a goal of doing something, and then not being specific enough. So like in the back of my mind, it's like, hey, well, how do you get to that goal? I'm not quite sure. So you like, for example, if you just said I want to exercise more, that's a great idea, and that's something that most of us should probably be doing more of, but it's way too general. So I think instead, like, you get really clear. So plan like specific days and times. So instead of I just want to exercise more, like I'm going to walk, 20 minutes on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday after dinner. And then I'm going to do resistance training on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 9 a.m. So then you know exactly when you're doing this, how you want to do it, where you're going to do it. The more specific you are, the easier it's going to be to stay on track because you know exactly what to do and when you're going to do it. So don't overcomplicate your goals. Start simple. Focus on one achievable step. Build that consistency. Layer in more, and then the vague goals won't get you anywhere. So be specific, schedule it, and just have that clarity. And the key is going to be consistency to doing that.
For sure. I actually had this conversation with a few people over the last few days. Everyone, when we get on the call, they say, yeah, I want to lose weight. I want to get in better shape. I'm like, cool. What does that mean? If the goal is weight loss, that's great. But what specifically does that mean? How much weight? How much fat? What do you want to look like? By what time frame? There's so many things that we can dive into there. And that's also why we have clients set weekly goals with us. And I always catch people on that specificity too. They say the goal is to lose 1 pound this week. I'll make them redo it. I'll be like, okay, that's great. We can have that 1 pound goal in the back of our minds, but trying to somehow drop a pound doesn't do shit. And it gets you stuck in obsessing about numbers. But what are the actionable steps that we need to focus on to lose that 1 pound? Maybe it's hitting the macro targets we have, hitting the workouts, like you said, really diving deep on when you're doing them, what they look like, setting aside time to meal prep, things like that. That's the real actionable goal that you need to focus on. And so same applies with the New Year's resolutions. Break them down, start big, and then break them down into each step again and again until it's very actionable, very manageable, and can fit into your life.
Yeah, and so I think, when we think about January, and I think about New Year's, I feel like, there's a lot of pressure from everyone, whether, someone specifically putting the pressure on you or not. Like, I feel like there's pressure that everyone has to be improving on something, whether it's health and fitness or reading more books or something. Everyone's like, oh, what's your goal for this, for the new year? Or, what's your word for the new year or something? And again, I think it's great to have those and want to do those. But it can be very overwhelming, especially when you have that pressure. So we're told it's a fresh start, even though it's really just another day. That's the way, I guess, society, we've kind of created that image that it's a perfect time to set goals and like completely transform our lives and get to where we want to be. But like you said, I think you mentioned this earlier, when you jump from 0 to 100, it's like running a marathon without ever warming up, and you just hop out of bed. Oh, I'm going to run a marathon today. You're going to set yourself up for failure. So this pressure kind of makes it feel like it's like a magical day. And if we don't hit the ground running, if we're not going to the gym 7 days a week, or we're not eating every single meal as healthy as possible, then, we often feel like we failed before we even started. And so imagine starting the year, day one, you didn't go to the gym and that was your goal to get in shape. And you're like, oh my gosh, January 1, 2025, I've already failed, on that one day. So I think that mindset, to create a different mindset, is really important too. So instead of waiting for January 1st, why not start now? And we don't have to put all of this on one moment. Instead, we can kind of gradually test it out. By the time this airs, you'll have a few weeks until January 1st. Start thinking about what you want to do, how you want to do it, start with your plan, and then try it out. See how it works. Build that solid foundation, ease into the goals without all the pressure. Just don't wait for the new year to begin. You have the vision, you get serious about it, start it today. I think it can be a really, really big game changer, actually. You get that jumpstart on everybody else. So you can experiment with new habits now, see what works. You can tweak things along the way. And then by the time January does roll around, you're starting to build that momentum, or you're figuring out the things that didn't work for you. I was thinking about, let's say you're like, okay, I'm going to start working out every morning when I get up. I'm going to get up, go to the gym, start my day off. Well, let's say we started in December and realize that for various reasons, that's really not a great time for us to work out. Like, okay, well, let's change it up. Let's figure out another back time. And then we haven't even hit January 1st yet. And maybe you figure out that time, January 1st, like I'm locked in, I'm working out this time every day. And I think the perfect moment isn't a date on a calendar. It's today. Just get started and get going.
Definitely. And I like that emphasis of refining as you go, because that's going to be a part of the process. You're not going to set these goals, set the plan, and it's just going to magically work. You always have to refine, adjust, especially as you go through different seasons of life. But ultimately, it's do not wait until New Year's to start working towards a better you. Because it kind of brings the question, do you actually want this goal if you have to wait until a certain date to start? Why put off feeling better? Why put off looking better, living a happier, more fulfilled life to another date? There's no better time than now to start that journey. And I think that a lot of people get stuck on the holidays. They want to push it off until after the holidays because of how chaotic it is. There's a lot going on. It's a little bit tougher to stay on point and on track. So a lot of people think, how am I supposed to enjoy the holidays if I'm working towards these goals? Well, one, we got an episode on that, so go back and listen to that one. We break that all down
Go
in
back and
depth.
listen to it.
But the beauty of life is you can make progress toward your goals and enjoy yourself at the same time. It's about finding that right balance and being able to incorporate both into your life simultaneously.
Yeah, and again, if you're thinking about or you're taking our advice, then you're not starting everything all at once anyway. So even if the holidays are really busy and you got a lot going on, just starting that one small actionable step towards those goals, and you just keep adding as you go. And maybe it's slower because you have a lot going on right now, but that's totally fine. It's going to be way more sustainable than trying to jam it all in the new year or any other time. So let's talk about some actionable steps that you can actually think about. And the first thing is probably focus on whole foods. Start by adding more whole foods and nutrient dense foods to your meals. We don't like to be restrictive with our meal choices, with our food choices. Instead, we always like to encourage adding things to our diet. So our meal plan. So for example, if you don't eat a lot of vegetables, then adding vegetables or adding fruits or adding lean proteins, adding healthy fats without taking things away at first, I think is a great way to start that out. And again, we're not talking about whole foods every single meal all of a sudden. Just start slowly incorporating that into your everyday, your lifestyle.
Yeah, majority of your stuff should be coming from whole foods, and I think that that's going to, in turn, make a lot of less damage with eating other things. You're going to feel fuller, you're going to feel more satisfied, and you're going to give your body the nutrients it needs and feel less cravings to turn to the other stuff. And it'll give you more balance in being able to eat the other things without completely going off the rails and going on these binges.
Yeah, totally agree. All right, so next we've talked about this before, but consider tracking your macros. Now, I think sometimes people kind of relate like tracking to being super obsessive, and that's not what we're talking about. So just getting familiar and understanding like how much protein you're taking in currently, how many carbs, how much fat, just kind of idea of how you've been eating. It's just building that awareness. And I really do think that helps. Just building that awareness and understanding what it is without changing anything, I think will definitely help towards your goal. And you can use apps like MyFitnessPal, make it really easy. You just track it in there and it gives you all the information that you need. All right, and then of course, lifting weights, resistance training. And we never recommend doing like 7 days a week, especially if you're starting out. 3 times a week would be awesome. So for fitness, we really want to focus on strength training 3 times a week, lifting weights. Great for building muscle. Obviously, it's great for boosting, revving up that metabolism, and just in general, supporting long-term health. And you don't need a super complicated workout plan. Just start with 3 sessions a week. Focus on the big, large compound movements, the major muscle groups. And then once you get comfortable with that, then you can build from there.
Yeah, and like we said in the holiday episode, is Even if things are a little crazy, do some body weight stuff, do some band stuff, but prioritizing that lifting, 3-ish times a week is going to be huge, and maintain as much normalcy as you can and start building that solid foundation for fat loss, for muscle building, for achieving the goals you want, because ultimately it all comes down to having muscle mass. And so we want to make sure that strength training is a top priority.
Yeah, and again, you're practicing making that a consistent thing.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're stuck on, I have to go to the gym to get this in, then especially in the beginning, it's really hard to create that consistency. But if you have all those other options, like we had talked about and what you just mentioned, then you're like, okay, I can't get to the gym today, but maybe I can do some body weight squats, in the morning or throughout the day or whatever like that. You're still building that consistency. Okay, I still got my workout in, and that just becomes part of your lifestyle then.
Progress over perfection, always.
Yes. All right. So sleep. How much do we underestimate sleep?
A lot.
At all ages, right? Doesn't matter
Yep.
how old we get, we're still like, do I really need that much sleep?
Yeah.
But really that's when our body repairs. That's when our muscles repair. That's when our body it needs that time to recuperate, and especially as we're adjusting to new routines. We always recommend 7 to 8 hours of quality. I think that's good to highlight that quality sleep, and then of course taking rest days. You need that time to prevent burnout, but also again let your muscles recover and set yourself up for the next workout. And then just in general, adding daily movement. So outside of your main workouts, we want people to be moving as much as possible, especially if you have a job or your lifestyle is very sedentary. And it could be, 10, 15-minute walks. I love 10, 15-minute walks like after meals. Those are just fantastic. But any kind of stretching or even just like, let's say you have a job where you're at the desk all day, just standing up, throughout the day, walking around your cubicle or walking around the floor of your building is so important. And all those little actions add up and it really does helps keep the energy up. And then down the road, ideally, we want to get up to 8 to 10,000 steps a day. But again, if you start tracking that and you're like, every day I get 3,000, 8 to 10 may be unrealistic. So, hey, if you're doing 3,000, let's shoot for 5,000. And you just kind of keep building until you get to that.
Yeah, notice how all of these actionable steps that we want to focus on are so simple and straightforward. Focusing on the quality of food, looking at the quantities, the portions, making sure you're getting the right amount of those, making sure we're staying active with the steps, like you said, weight training 3-ish times a week, getting that sleep. It's all the foundation. And I swear, these 5 things will take you 90, dare I say, like 99% of the way just by doing these. So it doesn't need to be some complex, overwhelming task. Like, just start with these basics and it will take you majority of the way there.
Yeah, I totally agree.
And I think the biggest issue in general when people start their fitness journey or any new protocol is the burnout that usually comes shortly after, kind of like we mentioned with the New Year's resolutions. Do not go in trying to change everything around. That's why you crash and burn and end up gaining the weight back. We need something sustainable. And that's often going to look very different than you pictured. We want stupid, simple habits to start, like these 5 things that we mentioned. We always meet clients where they're at, and you need to do the same with yourself. Start small to where it almost seems too easy. Like you got it, no problem. And we want that. So that way you can be consistent and be able to build on it from there. So again, if you haven't been working out, start with a 10-minute walk a day or 2 quick workouts a week. Or if you have some experience, then find a set program and be consistent for 2 to 3 workouts a week. Or if you're looking to eat healthier, add in a few whole food meals each week, or start logging your food, like we said, via MyFitnessPal or something to see what you're actually eating, or just make one simple swap from a snack to like a high protein snack or a dish. The options are quite literally endless, and there's no right or wrong way to approach it. It's whatever works best for you in your life and where you're at currently. The check is always, can you see yourself doing this long term? If not, it's the wrong plan. So these are these small steps basically make January feel less overwhelming, and you're setting yourself up for that strong foundation for the sustainable permanent lifestyle change that we want.
Yeah, again, the key to success here is going to be consistency. Consistency over intensity. And so instead of having that like I'm going all in on January 1st, focus on these small, manageable, attainable actions. And that's what it is. Those small, sustainable changes, they all add up over time. And that's where you see that real progress. It's not about just like flipping a switch overnight. It's about making adjustments that you can actually stick, like you said, stick with long term that are sustainable. So think of these new habits as skills that you're developing, not just like rules you have to follow. And you're building something that's going to pay off in the long run. And it takes time, it takes practice, it takes patience, and it's not about that instant perfection. No one's going to go to the gym on January 1st, wake up January 2nd, and they've lost 5 pounds. So it's just all about that gradual progress, and the success isn't about going all in January 1st. It's about small consistent actions that add up over time. So think about your habits, skills, not rules. You're building something lasting, and like I said, it's going to take time, patience, and steady progress.
And remember to give yourself some grace throughout this process too. If you miss a workout, if you don't eat perfectly, it's okay. The world is not going to end. Things are always going to come up in life, especially during the holiday season. So it's always about building a foundation and stacking those 1% over time. It's never going to be that linear journey. It's always like the weight charts that we see with clients. It's always like up and down as opposed to just
Yeah.
straight up. In the long term, it's straight up, but there's always those dips and those highs along the way. So just remember that. I thought it would also be cool to kind of go over our own goals and how we are approaching that with the new year and intentions on how we structure it. So, what are some of the things that you're working on this year or just in the next few months?
Yeah, so I thought about that, and there's a couple things. So, in terms of the physical side of things, I'm getting older, and I've had a few injuries more often lately, the last few years than I've ever had before. And so, one thing I've started working on, I really want to be more intentional this year, is improving my mobility. Like I said, to improve my performance always, but more importantly, to reduce those risks of injuries. And it's a lot of it for me is just taking the time. I think when I was younger, I know for sure when I was younger, I would just get to the gym and I hit the weights right away. I don't need to stretch. I don't need to warm up. I don't do anything, So now I try to think about, okay, how can I prime my body? How can I prime my muscles for what I'm doing right now and set that workup up for a success and trying to be as smart as I can with that.
Yeah,
And then when it comes to, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think that mobility is always the first thing that we neglect, or it's easy to picture it as like, oh, it's just boring. I want to get to the fun stuff. I want to get to the heavy weights, and it's so easy to let that slip to the side. But I always say it's just as important as the rest of your training. So it's good to see like everyone at any stage needs to be prioritizing that. So I'm excited for you to get into that more.
Yeah, and to be honest, it's something this past year that I've wanted to improve. And there's been days where I'll go in there and every day I do some mobility drills, and then there's days where I just run in there and I don't even think about it. I start working out, and then I get in my car. And I'm like, I didn't do anything. I did any kind of mobility. And the cool thing about mobility drills is that you can do them anytime, anywhere. It's not like you really need to take a day off or something to rest. I mean, you can do them at home. You can do them. The best is probably specific mobility drills before you get or exercise before you get into the workout. But you can do them anytime throughout the day. So I definitely want to improve on that. When it comes to work, I really want to focus on, I'm always trying to have that growth mindset. How can I be a better trainer for my clients, continue to educate myself, continue to refine my skills, learn how to communicate the best that I can with all my clients, help them learn as much as they can from me. And then as a podcaster, now we're co-hosts, right? I want to level up my podcasting skills, and that's going to, I want to improve both the content as well as the delivery. And then, of course, I'm committed to doing my part to growing our Unbreakable brand. And, we just want to help as many people as possible. So, as many people we can reach is a big goal of mine as well. And then there's another one and this one, I've been working on for a couple of years probably now, maybe all my life, but this is really kind of like more recently. And so one goal that I've just found really challenging is I'm trying to be more still. And I'll kind of explain what that means. Is basically I'm trying not to let the chaos of the world around me dictate how I respond. I feel like there's a lot of circumstances in life that kind of control me and the way I respond, whether verbally or by action. And I want to develop more inner calm, and I want to be able to have more control, no matter what's happening outside of the world. And my favorite Bible verse is from Mark 4:35-41. And I mean, I just think it's the coolest story ever. So if you're not familiar with it, Jesus is with the disciples in the Sea of Galilee, and it's this gigantic sea, but it's kind of like an ocean in terms of the storms and stuff that happen there. And they're in the middle. They find themselves in the middle of this huge storm, and all the disciples are panicking. They're afraid they're gonna it's gonna flip over. They're gonna fall out. They're gonna die, and it's just a horrible situation for them. They're going nuts, and they look over, and Jesus is sleeping in the boat. He's just sleeping peacefully, and they're like, Jesus, get up! We're panicking. What's happening to us? And he just gets up and he just says, "Be still." And the waters calm down and the winds calm down and everything is just perfectly still. And although I'll never ever reach that perfection or calmness, I mean that's kind of like that is what I want to be more like. I want to be more like Jesus, and in the middle of chaos, he's just calm. He's just controlled as much as he can in that situation. So despite that chaos around him, he remained at total peace. And so that's my short-term, long-term goal, to develop that same ability to stay grounded even when life feels like it's out of control, and respond with stillness. And if we kind of relate it to what we're talking about, that's like my ultimate goal. If someone was like, okay, so how do you get to that? Because that's a pretty cool goal, but that's pretty lofty, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think of things like just everyday things, like for example, and my family would probably laugh at this, but like traffic. I want it when I want to get there as fast as I can, and I just can't stand when there's traffic around me, especially when I know that there's no reason for it. People just are driving too slow, or they're not following the rules like they should, and I often get very frustrated, and that's letting the situation control my stress levels. And so every day when I find myself in those situations, I try to remind myself, hey, you know what? Let it go. Set yourself up, leave on time so you don't have to worry about getting to a certain place, and think about how I'm responding to those things. And I fail a lot, but at least I'm working on it, and I'm trying to be more intentional about thinking about those moments and how I can better respond with the words I use, and then of course the actions that I have as well.
I love that so much. I think that's something that every single person can relate to. Like, I don't think there's anyone, maybe monks, out somewhere that have like mastered that. But other than that, I feel like we all experience that to some extent day to day. And I think that story too just paints such a perfect picture. Jesus just sleeping, chilling, like nothing is wrong.
Oh, I
And
love it so much. Such a great story.
I remember I always used to be so angry and just like pissed off by just random stuff that I couldn't even control. And it was a miserable existence. Everything is setting you off and you feel like you don't have that control and you're the victim to everything.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's exactly the same as what you have in mind, but I just remember like I always used to be that way, even just sitting in traffic or just like, dealing with people. I always get so pissed off and angry and for no reason. Like it just let it go. Everything is good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's easier said than done. I mean, I'll
Yeah.
tell myself like later, oh, why'd you respond like that? Why'd you say that, or why'd you act like that? But in that moment, you just get so frustrated. So it's kind of setting yourself up for that success, so going into that moment how you need to respond.
Yeah. So just one of those never ending practices that we just
Oh
continue to
yeah,
get better at.
yeah. So what about
Yeah.
yourself?
I got lots of goals per usual. I have goals in every single area, and naturally, because I love structure and organization, I have them all broken down. Most of them are things I've already been working on, but just want to continue that emphasis and like really draw more intention to them in 2025. But I'll touch on a few, basically one main one, and like it breaking down into a few different categories, just kind of at a higher level, because otherwise we'll be here all night with me breaking down everything. I guess the overarching goal is just well-being, and obviously that's broad, so that's why I'm going to break it down. One is stress, reducing stress physically and emotionally for me. I've as we all know, I went on my vacation last week, and that was the first time off I've had in like a good 3 years. I've been beating myself into the ground physically and mentally with work. And so, from the physical aspect, I'm reducing training a little bit to accommodate more recovery and more volleyball because I've really shifted my focus to volleyball. So, I want to make sure that I have a good balance between that and training, and then continuing to build more muscle, reduce body fat. I've been in the process of doing that. So just slowly refining there, but nothing major with that, more of just the balance and reducing stress in that area. Sleep, like we mentioned, we all, that tends to be the first thing to go. So sleep is something I'm really reprioritizing. because when things have gotten crazy with work, that's usually the first thing that I let slip, and I'll sacrifice that to go to the gym in the morning or work later at night. So I'm setting reminders for wind down, setting screen limits on my phone, especially for the work related apps, having a nighttime routine, a little walk, a little wind down. Also letting myself sleep in a little bit, and that means like till 6 a.m., which to me is sleeping in. So I'm letting myself sleep in, get a little extra sleep, and not trying to beat myself up for not getting up and immediately going and grinding. And also forcing myself off of work. And if I'm not able to get to everything on my very long to do list, just pushing it to the next day or readjusting if needed, and not beating myself up for not getting to everything, and instead allowing myself to pour more into the things I need to do for myself and like getting my sleep and stuff like that. In reducing stress as well, just doing more things that fill my cup. So sunrise walks, sunset walks, watching that from the beach, going to the beach frequently. Volleyball is a really big one that has provided me so much fulfillment after getting back into it. For like 10 years, I was out of it. So I've been really enjoying that, and hanging with friends, doing some more exploring of Florida because I feel like there's so much to see here and I've just kind of stayed in my bubble. So doing more things like that fill my cup. And then continuing my reverse diet. So I've been bumping up my calories and just staying super dialed with my macros, my meal prep, and everything. So that all kind of falls under the stress category. Told you I got a lot going on here. Second one is experiences and relationships. I, for the longest time, have sacrificed these. I think these are like the most important thing in life experiences. Like, if you aren't living life, then you're just kind of going through day to day numb, and that's what I did for a while. Like, don't get me wrong, I love my work, I love what I've been doing, which is why I've been able to like, get so locked into it. But I also want to make sure that I'm not sacrificing these experiences, and especially relationships, because that's something that I've struggled a lot on. And these are things that, like, work can always wait, but those types of experiences and building those meaningful relationships can't. So making sure that I put a big emphasis on that, setting harder boundaries with work to be able to do this stuff. And then I have, specific structures for outings each week when I get to go out and meet new people or try a new place, taking intentional time with my friends multiple times a week, just going and working in new locations every day. And I'll just go sit at a new coffee shop or a new place and just do some work. Been joining a lot of new groups and just putting myself out there, and then setting specific targets as far as weekly outings, kind of falling into those categories, then one bigger monthly outing, and then 1 to 2 big trips a year. So that's kind of how I'm breaking out and pouring into the experiences and relationships. And then last pillar is business. Sorry if this is too much.
No, it's great. Keep going.
Got a lot of thoughts on this, a lot I'm working towards. Business, that's a big one. We just re-outlined and rebranded this whole coaching, and so I just want to continue to fulfill on that as a high level. Getting this podcast up and running, working on my speaking skills as well as a big one. Fostering our team environment with you, me, and Kate, our other coach, just really making sure we have a really strong team environment and like we're all in it together and aligned there. And then just continuing to build more free resources, building our community up, and just continuing to impact lives and connect with every single client on a very high level. So, yeah, those are kind of like the main 3 things that fall into my well being and some of the main intentions that I have going into this year. So, in conclusion, if you're setting goals for January, remember you don't need to wait for January 1st. Start now, ease into it, focus on consistency over intensity. And if you want to connect with us, you can find us basically everywhere. I'll put those in the show notes. And the best place to connect is actually going to be in our private community. We run all kinds of challenges, giveaways, calls, and new content in there every day. And if you're looking for a new program to follow, meal ideas, or learn how to track food, manage stress, we literally have guides built out for everything in there. And it's completely free to join and get them. So I'll put that link in the notes as well. And let's make 2025 the best year of our lives. Let's fucking go.
2025. Woo!
Woo!